No one aboard Flight 278 from New York to Chicago knew exactly what was coming. It was an ordinary morning, the kind where passengers settled into their seats with sleepy eyes and half-hearted smiles. In first class, Megan, in 24, pregnant and traveling alone, adjusted her seatbelt. She was a young black woman with a quiet grace about her. Dressed simply, no one would guess she came from a wealthy family. On this particular day, Megan wanted no special treatment. She just wanted to reach Chicago safely. Across the aisle, the flight attendant, Julie, moved through the cabin with a fixed grin. She was known for keeping things neat and orderly, but her colleagues sometimes whispered about her attitude. Rumors floated that Julie harbored a certain dislike for black passengers. Still, it was impossible to be sure. After all, everyone had their own secrets, and who could prove what lay behind a courteous smile? As the plane ascended, the atmosphere remained calm. But there was a subtle tension, like a taut string waiting to snap. Megan noticed Julie's sideways glances. Passengers feigned indifference, but subtle exchanges of looks hinted that something wasn't quite right. No one dared speak it aloud, yet. As the aircraft cruised above the clouds, the cabin lighting softened, and attendants began their beverage service. Megan tried to relax. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the subtle flutters of new life within. She wondered what her future child would think of this world, where kindness and cruelty often mingled unseen. Julie approached Megan's seat, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Would you care for something to drink?" she asked, voice clipped. Megan offered a polite nod. There was nothing overtly hostile, yet Megan sensed a certain chill. Perhaps she was overthinking it. Still, Megan's instincts told her something was off. 2 rows behind, a businessman glanced up from his newspaper. A teenage girl pretended to watch the in-flight movie, but her earbuds dangled unused. Another passenger tapped at their laptop, stealing quick looks toward Megan and Julie. Everyone sensed the subtle friction, though no one voiced it. The plane hummed steadily onward. Megan sipped sparkling water, keeping her posture composed. She noticed Julie's interactions with other passengers were smooth and friendly. Why did it feel different with her? Megan brushed off the unease, hoping it was all in her mind. But the tension only grew. Hours into the flight, the mood remained strangely charged. Megan tried to read a magazine, but her eyes drifted over the words without absorbing them. Instead, she caught glimpses of Julie moving through the aisle, offering small kindnesses, adjusting a blanket, fetching extra cream for coffee, smiling at one passenger's joke. With others, Julie seemed effortlessly pleasant. So why did her demeanor toward Megan feel like walking on thin ice? Megan could sense, without any direct insult yet spoken, that Julie's warmth chilled whenever their paths crossed. The difference was subtle. An awkward pause, a tight-lipped smile, but it weighed heavily. Megan was accustomed to facing prejudice in small, insidious forms. She had learned to be patient, to keep her head high, and to never let it break her spirit. The rest of first class seemed aware something hovered beneath polite surfaces. Conversations quieted whenever Julie neared Megan's row. A few passengers exchanged knowing glances. No one stepped in or said anything. After all, nothing truly bad had happened, at least not yet. High above endless clouds, time stretched and air thinned. Suspense coiled tighter. In the silence, Megan wondered what might erupt if this tension finally snapped. As the flight continued, Megan began to feel uneasy. She shifted in her plush seat, trying to find comfort. Her baby's subtle kicks reminded her to stay calm, to think ahead. She tried to focus on positive thoughts, reuniting with family in Chicago, the excitement of motherhood, her upcoming plans. Yet, the flight attendant's barely concealed hostility gnawed at her peace of mind. Passengers watched from behind newspapers, over seatbacks, and through peripheral glances. They sensed something brewing. Megan caught the eye of a middle-aged woman 2 rows down who gave a faint, sympathetic shrug. But sympathy without action felt hollow, and Megan wondered if anyone would step forward if things turned ugly. Julie lingered at the front of the cabin, chatting with another attendant. Her laughter there sounded easy, unlike the curt tone she adopted with Megan. The plane's hum was the only constant comfort. Tension simmered, but the true conflict remained elusive, unspoken. Megan steeled herself, deciding she would not allow anyone to push her around or make her feel small. Yet, as the flight neared its midpoint, she couldn't shake the feeling that events were spiraling toward a moment no one could have predicted. Whispers rustled through the cabin. The slightest turbulence rattled the trays. Outside, the world was an endless expanse of sky, seemingly calm, yet within this aircraft, a storm brewed. Megan's eyes narrowed as Julie approached again, this time to collect trash from the meal service. The flight attendant's posture was rigid, her politeness icy. Megan braced herself. She refused to appear intimidated. Still, her heart thumped harder in her chest. Would Julie say something openly hostile? Or had the tension been a mere figment of Megan's imagination? Across the aisle, a passenger pretended to sleep, but their lids fluttered with curiosity. In the economy section, a murmur of voices drifted forward, as though even beyond first-class people sensed the strange energy radiating through the cabin walls. Julie paused by Megan's seat, their eyes locking for a fraction of a second. Megan noticed how Julie's nostrils flared, how her hand tightened on the trash bag. The silence felt alive, crackling with unspoken words and prejudices long suppressed. Megan's pulse pounded in her ears. The next few minutes could change everything. Outside, clouds drifted lazily, unaware of the human drama unfolding at 30,000 feet. No warning came. No subtle hint that everything would erupt this very moment. Suddenly it happened. Megan asked a simple question, perhaps about landing time or a glass of water. Julie turned sharply, her voice strained, words clipped. Confusion washed over Megan's face. She deserved a civil reply, nothing more. Passengers looked up, startled by the sudden hostility. Julie's composure cracked, and in that terrible second, frustration and bias rose to the surface. Her voice became a hiss as she told Megan she didn't belong in first class, that people like her should stick to lower cabins. Shock rippled through the rows. Megan's face flushed. Megan tried to remain calm, but before she could protest, Julie did the unthinkable. She raised her hand and slapped Megan across the face. A gasp reverberated through the plane. Megan's hand flew to her cheek, eyes filling with stunned disbelief. A hush fell, suffocating the cabin. Every passenger's heart pounded. No one dared move. The unspoken tension that had built for hours exploded in this single, shocking act. The plane seemed suspended in a moment of collective disbelief. Something monumental had just happened, and there would be consequences. For a heartbeat, no one reacted, as if frozen in disbelief. Then, whispers and gasps spread like wildfire. Some passengers half stood, others strained to see. Megan, hand trembling, reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number. Was it her family? Her mother? Meanwhile, Julie stood there, stunned by her own actions. Her face paled as she realized what she had just done. In all her years, she had never imagined crossing such a line. She backed away, as if distance could erase the crime. Megan spoke quietly into the phone, her voice calm but firm. The tension thickened. No one knew what Megan said, but her steady tone suggested powerful connections. A few minutes later, the cabin speakers crackled. There was an announcement, unusual and urgent. The passengers listened, breath held. The announcement revealed something unimaginable. In these brief moments, Megan's mother, a wealthy and influential businesswoman, had taken swift action. She had just purchased the entire airline. Stunned silence followed. Passengers exchanged astonished glances. This flight had just turned into a theater of shock and retribution. The balance of power had shifted dramatically, and everyone could sense it. Julie's face turned ashen. The speakers crackled again. A calm, authoritative voice announced, Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Effective immediately, Megan, our passenger in first class, is now the new owner of this airline. Any past grievances or misconduct will be addressed promptly. No one could believe their ears. The cabin erupted in hushed murmurs. Some passengers applauded, others looked bewildered. Julie stared in horror. Her position, once secure, now dangled by a thread. She realized too late that her prejudice had led to her downfall. An airline officer, who happened to be on this flight, stepped forward. His demeanor was professional and stern. He informed Julie that her employment was terminated, effective immediately. The stunned flight attendant's face drained of all color. She stammered, pleaded that this was a misunderstanding, tears welling up as her career slipped through her fingers. Megan watched in silence. She could have reveled in revenge, but instead, she felt a mixture of sorrow and disappointment. This wasn't the way she wanted to claim her family's airline. The passengers were glued to their seats, eyes wide, witnessing a drama that surpassed any movie they'd ever seen. The aircraft's steady hum provided the only backdrop to this unfolding reality. Tears streaming down her cheeks, Julie approached Megan, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry," she said. "I lost control. I don't know what came over me. Please forgive me. Don't ruin my career." She sobbed openly, her earlier arrogance gone. The passengers watched, hearts pounding. They had seen a shocking act of hatred, followed by unimaginable power wielded in minutes. Now they witnessed Megan's decision, one that would define her character. Megan looked at Julie, remembering how just moments ago she had been struck across the face in front of strangers, remembering the cruel words, the humiliation, and the injustice. But Megan also understood human frailty, the capacity for regret, and the importance of setting an example. She spoke softly. "I forgive you." Her words weren't just for Julie. They were for everyone watching. Megan reminded them that cruelty doesn't have to be met with cruelty, that forgiveness can break a cycle of hate. With measured composure, Megan said, "We must learn to treat everyone with respect, regardless of color or clothing. We are all human." The passengers exhaled in relief and admiration. Julie nodded, tears still falling, grateful for a second chance she never thought possible. The seatbelt sign illuminated as the plane prepared to land. Outside the windows, Chicago's skyline emerged, a silent witness to the extraordinary events that had transpired thousands of feet above the earth. The atmosphere had shifted. Passengers who once watched passively now understood they had witnessed something transformative. As the landing gear lowered, a soft applause rippled through the cabin. It grew louder, spreading from seat to seat until everyone clapped. They clapped for Megan's courage, for her compassion in the face of prejudice. They clapped to acknowledge the lesson learned. No one should be judged by their color or attire, and everyone deserves dignity. Megan smiled gently, appreciating the support. Though the day's events were surreal, she took it all in stride. She hadn't planned on owning an airline today, nor had she expected to face open hostility. But sometimes life took unexpected turns. When the plane touched down and rolled to the gate, everyone rose to gather their belongings. They would leave with more than carry-ons. They would carry a story of what happened in the sky. As they stepped off the plane and into Chicago's waiting arms, the passengers knew they had witnessed a story worth sharing.